In American aristocracy, the Kennedys stand as iconic historical figures, prominently featuring President John F. Kennedy, Senator Edward Kennedy, and Senator Robert F. Kennedy. But what do you know about the other members of this family? I'll show you how the origin of this strong political family traces back to Ireland. Also, while we may know of their success as politicians and administrators, I'm almost certain you're not aware of the large wealth and property they possess in America. In 1998, the family realized a sum slightly exceeding $300 million from the sale of Chicago's Merchandise Mart, once acclaimed as the world's largest building. But even that is the tip of the iceberg. There's much more. Why is John F. Kennedy's administration referred to as the Camelot of America? Who is the patriarch of this large family? What are the present Kennedys up to? How much wealth and influence does the family command in modern-day America? Let's find out. The Kennedy family remains a prominent American political dynasty with a substantial legacy in American politics, public service, entertainment, and business. In 1884, marking 35 years since their arrival from County Wexford, Ireland, Patrick Joseph J.P. Kennedy became the inaugural Kennedy, elected to public office, serving in the Massachusetts state legislature until 1895. The family's continuous presence in federal elective offices began in 1947, when P.J. Kennedy's grandson, John F. Kennedy, entered Congress from Massachusetts and endured until 2011, when Patrick J. Kennedy II, John's nephew, concluded his tenure as a member of the U.S. House of Representatives from Rhode Island. According to genealogist Brian Kennedy in his publication JFK's Irish O'Kennedy Ancestors, the Kennedys, who would later play a significant role in the United States of America, trace their origins to an Irish clan known as O'Cennaigh Féin. This clan, along with O'Cennaigh Don and O'Cennaigh Ruad, constituted the three Irish Gaelic O'Cennaigh clans that ruled the Kingdom of Ormond. In 1546, their progenitor, Diarmaid O'Cennaigh Fionn, became the owner of Nye Castle, located near present-day Puckane, County Tipperary. In 1740, having ceded ground to the new English order in the Kingdom of Ireland, they relocated to Dunganstown, New Ross, County Wexford, where Patrick Kennedy was born. Patrick Kennedy, 1823 to 1858, and Bridget Murphy, 1824 to 1888, embarked from Ireland to East Boston in 1849. Patrick worked as a barrel maker or cooper in East Boston and had 5 children with Bridget. Their youngest, Patrick Joseph P.J. Kennedy, entered the business world and served in the Massachusetts state legislature from 1884 to 1895. P.J. and his wife, Mary Augusta Hickey, had 4 children. The eldest, Joseph Patrick Joe Kennedy Sr., was a businessman who accumulated a private fortune in banking and securities trading. He expanded his wealth by investing in filmmaking and real estate, founding Somerset Importers and acquiring ownership of Chicago's Merchandise Mart. In 1914, Joseph Sr. married Rose Fitzgerald, the eldest daughter of John F. Honey Fitzgerald, who served 6 years as mayor of Boston and 6 years as a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. The couple had 9 children: Joseph Jr., John, called Jack; Rose Mary, called Rosemary; Kathleen, Eunice, Patricia, Robert, called Bobby; Jean, and Edward, called Ted. Joseph Sr. was appointed by President Franklin D. Roosevelt as the first chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, chairman of the Maritime Commission, and U.S. ambassador to the United Kingdom from 1938 to 1940. He served from 1947 to 1949 on the Hoover Commission, appointed by President Harry Truman to recommend administrative changes in the federal government. In 1951, Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy was named Papal Countess of the Holy Roman Church by Pope Pius VII, recognizing her exemplary motherhood and many charitable works. Joseph P. Kennedy Sr., PJ's son, and his wife, Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy, raised 9 children, including John F. Kennedy, who held positions in both houses of the United States Congress and served as U.S. President, Robert F. Kennedy, who served as U.S. Attorney General and as a U.S. Senator, and Ted Kennedy, whose U.S. Senate tenure exceeded 46 years. Other family members include individuals who served in the U.S. House of Representatives, 2 U.S. ambassadors, 1 U.S. envoy, a lieutenant governor, 3 state legislators, one of whom also served in the U.S. House of Representatives, and a mayor. Eunice, one of Joseph and Rose's daughters, played a crucial role in establishing the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development, part of the National Institutes of Health, and the Special Olympics. Descendants of Robert and Rose Kennedy have pursued careers as lawyers, authors, and activists, particularly advocating for individuals with physical and intellectual disabilities. Every Kennedy elected to public office has aligned with the Democratic Party, while other family members have been involved in party work or held cabinet positions in Democratic administrations. A significant number have received education at Harvard University, and the family has made substantial contributions to the John F. Kennedy School of Government at the university. Joseph Sr. envisioned a political career for his eldest son, Joseph Jr., with the ultimate goal of being elected president. Joseph Jr. was chosen as Massachusetts delegate to the 1940 Democratic National Convention and enlisted in the U.S. Navy during World War II. Tragically, he lost his life in 1944 when the bomber he piloted exploded in flight. Following this tragedy, Joseph Sr. redirected his hopes for political involvement toward John, who had initially considered a career in journalism. John, having authored a book titled Why England Slept, and worked as a reporter for Hearst newspapers, entered politics after returning from Navy service. He served in the U.S. House of Representatives, representing Massachusetts' 11th Congressional District from 1947 to 1953, and later as U.S. Senator from Massachusetts from 1953 to 1960. In the 1960 presidential election, John narrowly defeated Republican opponent Richard Nixon. During John's administration, Robert served as Attorney General, while his brother-in-law, Sergeant Shriver, directed the new Peace Corps. Ted was elected to the U.S. Senate from Massachusetts and held his brother's former Senate seat until his passing in 2009. The Kennedy administration achieved significant milestones, including the Alliance for Progress with Latin America, the establishment of the Peace Corps, a peaceful resolution to the Cuban Missile Crisis in October 1962, the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty of 1963, the 24th Amendment ending the poll tax, the continuation of the Apollo spaceflight program with the goal of landing a man on the moon, and the introduction of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to Congress, signed into law by Kennedy's successor, Lyndon B. Johnson. The family drew intense media coverage during and after Kennedy's presidency. Not many understand the reference to Camelot used when discussing the Kennedy administration. According to Larry Sabato, director of the Center for Politics at the University of Virginia, the Kennedys are gradually receding into history with each passing year. Sabato reveals that in his annual inquiry to students about the meaning of Camelot in relation to the Kennedy family, only a handful of around 150 students typically raise their hands. Let's quickly look into it and understand its origin and what it actually means. During the 1960s, well before his demise, Kennedy embodied a level of power and glamour that American presidents hadn't previously exhibited. Hailing from affluent socialite families, both Kennedy and Jackie possessed charm and attractiveness, with Kennedy also carrying the distinction of being a World War II veteran. Upon his election, Kennedy achieved the status of the second youngest president in history at the age of 43. Moreover, he broke new ground as the first Catholic president, further amplifying the historic nature of his presidency and fostering the belief that his tenure would be marked by distinctiveness. Looking back, the term Camelot has been associated with the Kennedy administration, spanning from January 1961 to November 1963, capturing the charismatic aura of Kennedy and his family. Jackie first publicly used the term in an interview with Life magazine shortly after the assassination, inviting journalist Theodore H. White to the White House. White, renowned for his Making of a President series on Kennedy's election, was the chosen interviewer. In the interview, Jackie referenced the Broadway musical Camelot, which Kennedy purportedly enjoyed. The musical was penned by his Harvard schoolmate Alan Jay. Jackie quoted the concluding lines of the last song. "Don't let it be forgot that once there was a spot, for one brief, shining moment, that was known as Camelot. There'll be great presidents again, but there never will be another Camelot." When White presented the 1,000-word essay to his Life editors, they expressed concern that the Camelot theme was excessive. However, Jackie insisted on no alterations and personally edited the interview. The immediacy of the interview played a pivotal role in solidifying the perception of Kennedy's America as Camelot. In that particular moment, Jackie stood as a grieving widow and mother before the world. Her audience was not only sympathetic, but more importantly, receptive. So what are some of the current members of the Kennedy family doing now? In November 2012, Joseph P. Kennedy III, son of Joseph P. Kennedy II and grandson of late Senator Robert F. Kennedy, was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives from Massachusetts' 4th Congressional District. However, in 2020, Joseph P. III experienced defeat in the U.S. Senate primary election in Massachusetts against incumbent Ed Markey, marking the first time a Kennedy had lost an election in the state. In the 2020s, 3 members of the Kennedy family were serving as U.S. ambassadors or envoys. President Biden appointed Victoria Reggie Kennedy, Ted Kennedy's second wife, as U.S. ambassador to Austria in 2021. Caroline Kennedy, President Kennedy's daughter, was named U.S. ambassador to Australia by President Biden in 2022. She had previously served as U.S. ambassador to Japan under President Barack Obama. Also in the same year, President Biden appointed Joseph P. Kennedy III as U.S. Special Envoy to Northern Ireland. In April 2023, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., an environmental lawyer and anti-vaccine activist, announced his candidacy for the 2024 Democratic presidential nomination, later switching to an independent candidacy in October 2023. The Kennedy family has faced numerous tragic incidents, leading Senator Ted Kennedy to ponder during a televised statement about the Chappaquiddick incident in 1969, whether some awful curse did actually hang over all of the Kennedys. These incidents include Rosemary's non-consensual lobotomy in 1941, leaving her incapacitated for life, Joseph Jr.'s death in a Navy bomber explosion in 1944, Kathleen's death in a plane crash in France in 1948, John and Robert's assassinations in 1963 and 1968 respectively, Ted's survival of a plane crash with serious injuries in 1964, David's death of a drug overdose in 1984, Michael's death from injuries sustained in a skiing accident in 1997, John Jr.'s death in a plane crash with his wife and sister-in-law in 1999, Cara and Christopher's deaths of heart attacks in 2011 and 2018 respectively, Swasey Kennedy Hill's death of a drug overdose at 22 in 2019, and the disappearance of Maeve Kennedy McKean and her 8-year-old son Gideon Joseph Kennedy McKean in Chesapeake Bay in April 2020. Maeve's body was recovered the following week, and her son's 2 days later, approximately 2.5 miles from her mother's home on the Chesapeake Bay. What does it signify to be a Kennedy in 2023? It entails inheriting wealth, privilege, and a noble obligation to one's country. It involves enduring constant inquiries about your family, regardless of the desire to establish an individual identity. It means navigating generational trauma and enduring intense scrutiny. It also involves facing various conspiracy theories, such as the unfounded belief that John F. Kennedy Jr., who died in a plane crash in 1999, is actually alive and will be Trump's running mate in 2024. RFK Jr., is the fourth Kennedy in his family to run for president, with the account reaching 5 if you include his uncle by marriage, Robert Sargent Shriver Jr., who unsuccessfully ran for the Democratic nomination in 1976. Interestingly, 3 Kennedys currently serve in the administration that RFK Jr. seeks to challenge. Caroline Kennedy, his cousin, as ambassador to Australia, Victoria Reggie Kennedy, widow of his uncle Ted, as ambassador to Austria, and Joe Kennedy, his nephew, as the special envoy to Northern Ireland. For a long time, the Kennedy family has always had one member of the family in the corridors of power. The retirement of Patrick J. Kennedy, son of Edward, affectionately known as Ted, from Congress in 2011, marked the first instance since 1947 that a family member was not in elected office in Washington. However, this hiatus was brief, as Joe Kennedy III, grandson of Robert F. Kennedy, assumed a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives in January 2013, reinstating the family's influence on Capitol Hill. Click on the next video on your screen now to watch another video showcasing the power and influence of another wealthy family.